Let me ask you something real, and I want you to sit with this. Are you truly a priority in his life, or are you just convenient when it suits him? Because here's the harsh truth. No one talks about most women aren't being chosen. They're being used as fillers in someone else's empty space. Texted when he's bored, seen when he's lonely, kept close just enough to stay hopeful, but never close enough to be secure. And it's not because you're not smart enough, or beautiful enough, or cool enough. It's because no one ever taught you to see your value beyond your presence. This video isn't going to be a feel-good pep talk. It's going to be a wake-up call. Because I'm tired of watching incredible women shrink themselves just to be kept around. So if you've ever felt like you're stuck on the back burner, if your gut tells you something's off, but your heart keeps giving second chances, then this is the video you needed yesterday. I'm going to teach you how to stop being an option and start being the standard. No chasing, no begging, no performing, just the truth, the tools, and the power to shift the dynamic starting today. You ready? Because once you see this clearly, there's no going back to crumbs. You know, the most dangerous part about being someone's option is that you often don't realize it until you're already emotionally invested. You start mistaking inconsistency for mystery. You think the mixed signals mean he's just complicated, not careless. And slowly, you start shrinking to fit into the tiny spaces he makes available for you. It usually starts with communication. You hear from him, but only when he wants something. He responds when it's convenient. He shows up, but on his terms, and somehow you find yourself adjusting, excusing, accommodating, hoping that one day things will just click. But deep down, it always feels like you're one message away from being ignored. Then there's how he includes you, or doesn't, in his world. His plans, solo, his life, private, you're kept in a bubble, never really integrated. He talks about the future vaguely, but never includes you in it. He tells you he likes you, maybe even that he cares, but his actions say, I'll keep you close, just not too close. He doesn't ask the deeper questions. He doesn't show interest in the parts of you that matter. Your story, your pain, your growth. You feel emotionally safe when he's around, but emotionally starved when he's not. That emotional whiplash, that's not love, that's confusion dressed up as connection. And here's the hardest sign: when you bring up how you feel, he flips it. Suddenly, you're being too much, too sensitive, or overthinking. He doesn't try to understand, he just tries to deflect, because prioritizing you would mean taking accountability, and he's not ready for that. The truth is, if you constantly have to question your place in someone's life, you already have your answer. Being an option doesn't mean he's evil, it just means he's not invested. And the longer you stay in that space, the harder it becomes to walk away. But here's the good news. Awareness is the beginning of power, and now that you're seeing it, you can stop settling for half love, because what you tolerate today teaches the world how to treat you tomorrow. Let's get one thing straight. Most men who keep you hanging aren't doing it with evil intent. In fact, many of them genuinely believe they care about you. But intention doesn't excuse impact. And if you're left feeling confused, anxious, or emotionally starved, something's wrong. So what's really going on in the mind of a man who can't commit but won't let go? At the core of it, this behavior often comes down to emotional immaturity and fear of vulnerability. See, some men are drawn to connection, but terrified of the depth that real intimacy requires. They crave your affection, your attention, your softness, but they're unwilling or unable to offer the emotional depth needed to truly receive it. So they hover. They give just enough to keep you around, but not enough to create certainty. And here's where it gets tricky. Many of them don't even realize they're doing it. They may have unhealed wounds from their past abandonment, betrayal, shame that make commitment feel threatening. Opening up might feel like surrendering control. So instead they manage you like a risk, keep you close enough to feel connected, but far enough to feel safe. It's not always malicious, it's survival. But you're the one paying the price. This is why you often see a pattern: hot and cold behavior, emotional highs and lows, inconsistency disguised as not ready. And because those highs feel so intense, you start confusing drama for depth. You tell yourself, but we have a connection, when really you're just trauma bonding with someone who's emotionally unavailable. Another layer of the psychology, ego. Sometimes a man keeps you around simply because he can. You make him feel admired, desired, powerful. You boost his self-esteem without him needing to show up in a meaningful way. And the moment you start to pull back, he senses that shift and swoops back in just enough to re-secure your attention. It's not connection, it's control. Now here's the part that hurts. As long as you accept this behavior, you're reinforcing it. People treat you according to the standards you set. If he can give you breadcrumbs and still have access to your energy, your body, your time, why would he change? This isn't about blaming men, it's about understanding the pattern so you can break it. Because here's the truth, a man who's emotionally ready won't leave you in confusion. He won't play games with your heart. He won't risk losing you over his own fears. When a man is clear about your value, you won't have to keep proving it. And when you stop accepting bare minimum behavior, you stop attracting men who offer it. Because the moment you realize that being kept in limbo isn't romantic, it's emotional manipulation, you start stepping into your power, not by demanding more from him, but by expecting more for yourself. We've all heard it a million times. Communication is the key to a healthy relationship. And while that sounds good on paper, it's only part of the truth. And honestly, it's where a lot of women get stuck. Because the truth is, you can't communicate your way into being prioritized by someone who doesn't value you in the first place. Let's break this down. Communication is a tool. That's all it is. It's a way to express needs, set boundaries, share feelings, but the tool is only as powerful as the person using it and the person receiving it. You can open up, be vulnerable, explain exactly how you're feeling, and still be met with silence, deflection, or temporary behavior changes that don't last. Why? Because communication without comprehension, and more importantly, respect, leads nowhere. It becomes emotional labor without emotional reward. At some point, you have to ask yourself, is this person listening because they care, or because they want to calm the storm and go back to doing the bare minimum? You'll know by what happens after the conversation. Do they take real, sustained action? Or do they get defensive, flip it on you, or offer short-lived improvements before slipping back into the same patterns? Because here's the thing, you don't want to be with someone you constantly have to explain your value to. Someone who only shows up when there's a problem. That's not a relationship. That's emotional survival mode. So what is enough? Alignment, standards, energy, boundaries. These things speak louder than any conversation. You don't need to beg someone to treat you well when you start treating yourself as someone who deserves more. The way you carry yourself, the energy you bring into the room, the boundaries you uphold, becomes your strongest form of communication. When you walk away from mixed signals, when you no longer entertain someone who only shows up when it's convenient, when you stop over-explaining and start observing, that's when the dynamic shifts. The most powerful thing you can do isn't say, I need more from you. It's to become a woman who will never settle for less again, whether that's with him or without him. Because men hear words, but they respond to consequences. And the moment you stop rewarding inconsistency with continued access to you, that's when you stop being an option and start being the standard. Real change doesn't come from conversations. It comes from patterns being interrupted. It comes from actions that back up your words. It comes from walking away when your needs aren't being met, not to punish him, but to protect your peace. So yes, communication matters, but don't let it become your only strategy, because when your energy shifts, you won't have to explain your worth. It will be undeniable. Let's clear something up right now. Boundaries are not ultimatums. And if you've ever been made to feel guilty for setting a boundary, chances are you were dealing with someone who benefited from your lack of them. Here's the difference. And it matters more than you think. A boundary is about you. It's a standard, a decision, a limit you create to protect your peace, your energy, and your values. It's saying, this is what I need to feel safe and respected. This is what I will or won't accept in my life. Boundaries are rooted in self-respect, not control. An ultimatum, on the other hand, is usually about forcing someone else's behavior. It's often delivered from a place of fear, frustration, or desperation. Like, if you don't do this, I'm leaving, but without the inner alignment or follow through. Now, why does this matter? Because if you don't understand the difference, you'll start second guessing yourself. You'll hesitate to speak up. You'll stay in situations that drain you, just to avoid being labeled too much or dramatic. You'll keep over-explaining your needs to someone who's already decided they don't want to meet them. But here's the truth. Setting a boundary doesn't make you demanding. It makes you clear. And clarity is a filter. People who genuinely care about you will appreciate your honesty. People who are just benefiting from your silence, they'll call it an ultimatum. They'll accuse you of being manipulative or controlling. Not because you are, but because your self-worth now threatens their ability to take advantage of you. Let me give you an example. Saying, I need consistency and clear communication if we're going to continue seeing each other. That's a boundary. It's calm. It's firm. And it leaves space for the other person to either rise to the occasion or exit the picture. But saying, if you don't change, I'm done with you, when you know you'll stay regardless, that's an ultimatum. And most people don't respond well to threats, especially when they don't believe you'll follow through. Here's where the real power comes in. A boundary doesn't need a reaction to be valid. It doesn't need agreement. It just needs your consistency. Boundaries are most effective when you're ready to honor them without begging someone else to. You don't set boundaries to punish. You set them to protect. And once you do, you stop chasing behavior changes and start choosing emotional safety. Because at the end of the day, if someone walks away because you respected yourself, they were never aligned with you to begin with. Let them go. You didn't lose a person. You lost the illusion that tolerating less would eventually lead to more. And that's one of the most powerful things you can wake up from. Let's talk about the real shift that separates a woman who's just hoping to be chosen from a woman who knows she's the prize and acts accordingly. Being a high-value woman isn't about looking perfect, having money, or playing hard to get. It's not about being cold, controlling, or emotionally unavailable. That's performance. That's fear in a designer dress. The real high-value woman mindset is quiet power. It's rooted in self-trust, self-respect, and standards that don't move when someone else shows up inconsistent. It's understanding that your time, energy, body, and heart are not rewards for potential. They're sacred, and they're earned through consistency, emotional safety, and aligned values. You see, the shift happens when you stop measuring your worth by how much someone else wants you, and start measuring it by how aligned someone is with the life you're building. You stop asking, why didn't he choose me? And you start asking, was he ever even qualified for what I'm offering? Because here's the truth. A high-value woman doesn't chase clarity. She creates it through her standards. She doesn't beg for attention. Her presence demands it. Not through ego, but through alignment. She's not perfect, but she's honest. She's self-aware. She doesn't abandon herself just to avoid being abandoned by someone else. This mindset shift also means you no longer view rejection as a reflection of your value. You see it as redirection. You no longer fight for relationships that cost you your peace. You let go, not because you're weak, but because you refuse to negotiate your worth just to stay connected. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think being high value is about being desired by everyone. It's not. It's about being deeply respected by the right one. The high-value mindset isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about genuinely not entertaining what doesn't align. You don't wait around for maybe. You walk towards certainty. You don't lower your standards because you're afraid to be alone, because the relationship you have with yourself is already fulfilling. You become selective, not out of arrogance, but because you've worked too hard to become who you are now. You've healed. You've grown, and you know what it cost you to get here. So no, you're not here to prove you're worthy. You're here to choose people, environments, and relationships that match the woman you've become. That's the shift. That's the energy. That's the high-value woman. And once you fully embody that, trust me, the right people won't have to be convinced. They'll recognize it instantly, because high value doesn't chase, it attracts. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't need to wait weeks or months to change how someone treats you. You can shift the dynamic instantly, not by forcing them to change, but by changing how you show up. Because when your energy shifts, the entire interaction shifts with it. Let's break this down. The fastest way to change the dynamic is to stop seeking approval and start owning your presence. This means walking into a room or a conversation, not wondering, do they want me? But asking yourself, do they align with the version of me I've worked hard to become? When you drop the performance and start showing up as your full, honest self, not filtered, not guarded, not edited, you immediately shift the energy from validation seeking to self-anchored. And people feel that. Men especially respond to unspoken confidence more than any perfectly crafted message or cute strategy. If your energy says, I like you, but I don't need you to feel whole, it creates respect. If your energy says, I'll stay, but only if you show up fully, it creates boundaries without ultimatums. Another way to shift the dynamic, pull your energy where it's not being reciprocated. I don't mean ghosting or playing hard to get. I mean emotionally detaching from situations where you're constantly giving, hoping and waiting, and redirecting that energy inward, into your goals, your peace, your growth. When you stop pouring into people who are indifferent, they either step up or fade out. Both are clarity. You also shift the dynamic by no longer being afraid of silence. A high-value woman doesn't rush to fill the space when things feel uncertain. She observes, she listens, she waits to see who someone is when she stops over-functioning. And let's talk about language. The way you express your truth without over-explaining is powerful. Instead of saying, I just feel like you're not making time for me and I don't want to be a burden, try, consistency matters to me. If that's not something you're looking for, that's okay. I just know what I need. Calm, grounded, no shade, just truth. You shift the dynamic when your words stop trying to convince and start reflecting your standards. But here's the most important part. For any of this to work, you have to believe you're worth more. You have to believe that walking away from confusion creates space for clarity. You have to believe that being alone in peace is better than being accompanied in chaos. Because once you hold that belief in your body, not just your mind, you become someone who commands respect without raising your voice. Someone who doesn't beg for love, because she already lives in alignment with it. And when you move from that place, the dynamic doesn't just shift, it transforms, instantly. Let's take a moment to bring it all together, because everything we've talked about leads to one truth. You don't become a priority by proving your worth to someone. You become a priority by living like you already know it. Throughout this video, we unpack the signs that you're being treated as an option. From inconsistent behavior, unclear communication, and emotional distancing, to the deeper psychology behind why men keep you hanging. We talked about the difference between healthy boundaries and emotional ultimatums, and the exact mindset shift that defines a high-value woman. But here's the real question. How do you stay the priority long-term? It starts with consistency, not from them, but from you. You become the priority when you stop negotiating your standards to make someone more comfortable. When you stop waiting for potential and start responding to patterns. When your self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on how someone else is showing up. The high-value woman doesn't get pulled into proving herself every time there's distance or silence. She lets her absence speak when her presence is no longer being valued. Not as a punishment, but as a reflection of her truth. To stay the priority, you also have to remember this: attention is easy. Consistency is rare. Any man can text you at midnight. Anyone can say, I miss you. But are his actions matching his words over time? Are you experiencing emotional safety, clarity, and mutual investment? That's how you measure priority. Not by what they say, but by how you feel when you're with them. And here's where most people fall off. They do the inner work, raise their standards, but the moment someone charming comes along, they lower their boundaries just to keep them interested. That's not staying the priority. That's slipping back into option mode. You have to be brave enough to hold your line even when the connection is strong, but the consistency isn't. Because being a priority isn't about manipulating someone into choosing you. It's about choosing yourself first and refusing to participate in anything that makes you feel less than. That energy, it's magnetic, it's rare, and it shifts how people treat you. So if you take nothing else from this video, let it be this: you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself when they aren't watching. If you want to be the priority, you must live like one, in your habits, your decisions, your energy, and your expectations. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before you forgot your power. And from this point on, let that version of you lead. If you're still watching right now, I want you to pause, not the video, but your thoughts, and just breathe for a second. Because if anything in this video hit you in the chest, if you felt seen, if you recognized yourself in the patterns, the pain, or the silence, then this moment right here isn't random. It's yours. You didn't just stumble across this message. You came looking for something, even if you didn't know it. And what you were looking for wasn't a trick to make someone treat you better. It was permission to stop overgiving. Permission to stop shrinking. Permission to stop waiting for someone to finally see what's been there all along. Let me be clear. You don't have to earn love by being more patient, more understanding, more low maintenance, or more forgiving than you're comfortable being. You don't have to shape-shift into the ideal woman to get someone to stay. You only ever had to be authentic and brave enough to believe that the right person will never need you to dim your light to be loved. So, if you've been settling, hoping, holding on, let this be your turning point, because there is nothing more powerful than a woman who finally decides, I don't chase being chosen. I choose myself first, and I let everything else align from there. That shift in your spirit, that's the start of everything. You become magnetic not by trying to be perfect, but by being real. You become respected not by raising your voice, but by raising your standard. You become the priority not by demanding it, but by embodying it. And the more you trust that, the less noise you'll tolerate, the less confusion you'll accept, the less of your energy you'll pour into people who only give you fragments. In return, you'll begin to understand that your value was never in how much you gave away. It's in what you chose to protect. So protect your peace, protect your joy, protect your time, your body, your intuition. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to honor yourself. And if someone wants a place in your life, they'll rise to meet the version of you who no longer settles for being almost loved. You are not an option. You are the entire path. And I hope you carry that energy with you. Not just today, but every single day moving forward. Because once you truly know your worth, you'll never let anyone make you question it again.